Okay, here we go. Ban streamers. I know. Vocal minority, though? It's an overwhelming vocal minority. That's the thing. Okay.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Blizzard think they've went too far. They've said this. Ian Hazzikostas literally said this in regards to what they've done with classes and the pruning. He said that...
Is it loud?
Classes are the lens through which you play the game. And
that's literally like 10 other fucking things that we've said. Like, how many people in the community have said that exact same fucking thing? Louder? This should be fine.
The classes are bad. That because the class is the lens through which you play the game, well, a bad class is pretty much going to ruin the enjoyment of the game for many people. And that they are beginning to agree with that, and that they thank people for their feedback.
Louder? I'll make it a little bit louder.
Very interesting to hear indeed. There's quite a lot to get into here. There's some very interesting comparisons with Classic and with Live, spec identity versus class identity, and then also the fact that, yeah, we've literally heard a lot of these words before, but there is one kind of key difference this time around, and I think that's the thing we'll start with. So, we've heard Blizzard say they think they've went too far. We've been hearing that since, I believe, October, and then sporadically in interviews before that, just about things like class pruning. But that has typically not really happened in a super pre-prepared way. It's been things like the developer Q&As. Well, this comes from the Developer Insights video for patch 8.2 that was pre-recorded by Ian.
It's probably
and that does mean that they have control of the final edit. If they don't like something he ended up saying, they can take it out. So
that's actually a really good point. That's a really good point. So there's no way, like, this is something that was basically pre-approved by Blizzard. This isn't, you know, an offhanded comment that Ian made in a Q&A or something like that. This is something that they consciously allowed to go out there in that specific form. So I never thought of that, but yeah, what Belluar was saying right now is very true.
This is very much something that they have went on the record with. And they've not only just went on the record talking to Forbes or something like that, they've done it in the video they posted at the same time that they posted the 8.2 trailer. They've done it in something that essentially is a bit of marketing material for the 8.2 patch. So the fact that they've said these things in such a high-profile, prominent way, we could see that as a pretty large public commitment. And that's why I think it's important to talk to you about that today. So yes, Ian said they think they went too far in prior expansions and that they were too focused on their measure of complexity and all of that, just being the number of buttons.
Yeah,
even though, and this is an example that he talked about, there were things like, say, alter time. Now, alter time, that could be used very well, or it could blow up in your face and get you killed.
And that's what makes it fun.
Which meant that it was a really cool button. Okay, it had niche uses, it wasn't bound all the time, and perhaps because they just saw that wasn't a commonly bound button, they thought, we'll remove the button. And that's something that I think just about everyone who plays World of Warcraft has an example of, right? Something in your class that ended up being killed. Now, sure, from a hunter's perspective, I still miss the days of patch 5.2 and readiness and our crazy openers, and I get how some of that may have been a bit OP, but broadly speaking, yeah, I think we all have examples of some buttons that Blizzard just pruned away.
I don't have an example. I have like a whole book, like all the warrior abilities that I don't have anymore. Like I don't have Mocking Blow, I don't have Challenging Shout, I don't have Interrupting Shout, I don't have my banners anymore, I don't have Shattering Throw, I don't think, do I have Sunder Armor anymore? No, I don't have Sunder Armor anymore, I don't have Heroic Strike, I don't have Intercept, I don't have, let's see, Stances, I don't have, I'm running out of fingers here, I don't have Blood Rage, I don't have Throwdown, okay, there, I'm out of fingers, I'm done. Like, there's so many fucking things. Well, you do still have Shield Block. Shield Slam? No, you still have Shield Slam too. Holy shit, man. Yeah, use your toes. Sorry, guys. I don't want to get banned.
So that's the first thing that he
Oh, yeah, you can't shoot weapons. You can't shoot a weapon. Like, I literally have a bow. Like, do I have a bow or something that I can use? I have like somewhere like an arrow or a bow. There's no way I have a bow. It's like, all right, imagine, guys, listen. imagine this is like a bow, right? And you pull the bow back, right? And like usually you'd pull the bow back and you'd be like this, right? And you'd shoot the arrow. Warriors, this is how warriors use bows. Oh! And then they do nothing. They do fucking nothing. Like literally they sit there and they hold the bow on one end of the bow and then they just end up not even doing anything. They might as well just be hitting themselves. I'm serious. Didn't see that coming? Yeah, I know. That's smart, right? I love doing that shit, right? I do. I do. Only point is, like, it's so dumb. Like, warriors literally can't use bows. Like, give me a fucking break. Like, accurate for warrior players? Yeah, I'm serious. Like, I'd go on live right now, but I don't want to. But I'd go on live and show you guys. It's so stupid.
About, and I think it's very good that he talked about that. He said that they'll be looking to reintroduce some buttons in the future, and I think it's, for me, it's less about reintroducing old buttons, and it's more that they maybe feel free to have just more niche buttons in the future and new designs.
Yeah,
so that's definitely a good thing. But that's not all, though, because he did talk about something that I have really been feeling a lot lately, right? And that is spec identity over class identity. And there's a few different times where I've felt this, and I think it's an interesting insight. So when I was doing my class reviews for this patch, it really revealed to me something about the way that they're designing the game. And that was the first time that I felt it. And then the next time was playing Classic again. And the first thing that really strikes you with Classic is, I'm a mage. I'm not a fire mage, I'm not a frost mage, I'm not an arcane mage, I'm a mage. I'm a mage.
I don't know why they don't. I think going back to that and making class identity more of a focus than spec identity will actually help casual players a lot, because it'll be easier for them to transition between specs. Like this is like no troll or anything like that. That actually would be really good.
Mage use customizing. Yeah, I'm choosing which abilities from those schools of magic I want. But I'm a mage.
Yes.
Whereas right now, a fire mage is a fire mage, a frost mage is a frost mage.
Yep.
Their gameplay styles are entirely different. And that really is something that's been a big point of change. I think World of Warcraft has moved towards that more and more and more over time, to the point where really everyone plays 3 classes per character. That's just how different they are. But what's really happened, and this is kind of odd because Ian talked about the idea of, well, we could make some more abilities just generic and allow for more hybridization. He talked about thinking that hybridization is a strength, is a good thing, is fun, that people enjoy that, and I definitely agree with him. But
I wish there were more hybrid classes in the game. I think in BC there was like rep paladins, arms warriors, and enhancement shamans were all hybrids. Like the main thing that they brought to the raid is how they would help the other members in the raid. And I thought that just made the game so much more interesting. Like, I don't know why. I just thought, like, having, like, those hybrid, like, in between, like, damage and healer specs. Like, whenever Esfand, for example, whenever Esfand and we did Scarlet Monastery, and he would off-heal, and he would be able to, like, do these different, like, little cool things. And, like, you know, he's, like, doing damage, too, at the same time, but he's mostly healing and supporting. That's awesome. That was so cool. And I don't know why they don't do that more. I would love to see that more. Maybe people selfish because they played for others, though. Well, I don't think that players were selfish at all. I think that really the reason why they got rid of that is because they removed the social element in the game, and so people weren't being judged off of any sort of like a personal value or off of anything besides just the damage number that they brought to the raid. And that's it. And so in them eroding the social aspects of the game, they made hybrid classes less possible to raid with, because you need a certain amount of trust and a certain amount of understanding that you have with people that are hybrid players, that you know, okay, well, this person's going to be able to bring this into the game or whatever, right? And it's like playing hybrid classes works much better whenever you're playing with people that you trust and that understand what you're trying to do. And DPS meter damage, like just your straight up damage, is very easy for anybody to understand. So because it was the lowest common denominator that people could judge players by, that became the entire Bible in which that you would define if a player was useful to the raid or not. And in Burning Crusade and Vanilla, there are plenty of people that weren't doing a lot of damage, but they were incredibly useful to the raid. And whenever Wrath of the Lich King came out and pugging became really popular, all of that stuff kind of faded away. And you still have little remnants of that, right? With like Shadow Priest maybe, but not really. And I think they should go back to that a little bit more. It's going to be a hard transition for them to make, and I don't even know if it'll be possible with like the way that LFR and grouping works now.
I would almost say that at this stage, because buttons are less designed to just be a button, and they're designed to be a part of a very, very tightly designed cycle that provides a very specific gameplay aesthetic for that spec, that, well, the specs are just designed in such a specific way that I actually don't know if it's even possible to do that. But still, the fact that he was talking about that is, I think, super, super important. It reveals a lot of core differences between the current game and, I'd say, the current game, Mists of Pandaria, Cataclysm, and Classic. And I guess if I was to really boil that down, there is Now, there is MOP, there is Classic. Those are like points of just extremes in class design and how they...
I think that's true. Yeah, actually, that's a really good point, because Mists of Pandaria was like you needed 3 hands to play in Mists of Pandaria. Like, I knew people that bought foot pedals for Mists of Pandaria because they ran out of buttons on their mice, and they just had to buy a foot pedal too. That's whenever, like, think about, that's whenever Swifty was like super popular and giving away Razor Nagas all the time. Nobody needs a Razor Naga anymore because most classes can be played with a garage door opener now. But back then, that's why he was giving away Razor Nagas all the time, is because you needed 9 fucking buttons on your mouse to play your character. No, think about that. I mean, like, really, come on.
They've all been so very different. So when I was going back and I was doing those class reviews, right, for this expansion, I kind of found that I was reviewing every spec in isolation, because that was the format of the video. You go through each spec for each class, you give your thoughts on them. But I've actually found that a lot was missing in those videos, kind of because of the format. Because what I was doing is I was sitting down and I was thinking, Outlaw Rogue, okay, here is the rotation of Outlaw Rogue. It's very tightly designed. I'm here in a target dummy, I'm doing a few dungeons. I really have a good grasp of the designer's intent with this small little gameplay loop. But the thing is, that was kind of that. So within the bounds of my video, I'd just be saying, yeah, you know, within what they're trying to do here, this fire mage feels like a fire mage. This frost mage feels like a frost mage. We've got some decently impactful talent choices. Okay, yeah, all seems good. But doing that format entirely misses out a lot of the reason why a class is played. And this is, I think, what's really important, because I was sitting down there thinking, is this engaging gameplay, these buttons, right? Can I just sit down on a target dummy and, you know, do all my stuff? And I'll be like, yeah, okay, this is pretty good. But that's really missing out on the experience of playing a mage for 3 weeks and feeling like a damn mage. And that's really the thing that I think they've been missing. So hearing Ian talk about that is absolutely a fantastic thing to hear.
That's what
and
we've
that
been waiting
really is
for.
The contrast between now and between Classic, and even, you know, now and, say, Cataclysm, where...
Do you guys think that these revelations that it seems like Blizzard is having are a result of them going back and playing Classic and seeing the feedback that they're getting from Classic? I think a lot of them probably aren't. I really do. Classic is saving retail, and this is good. That's obviously a very good thing. Ian mentioned Classic multiple times, and it's an excuse to embrace it. I think they already knew the flaws. Well, I don't know. I mean, I really don't think so. Like, I honestly think that Blizzard's big problem is that they have a bunch of dads sitting in a room with closed doors agreeing with each other and telling each other how great they are. Like, that's the main problem that I think they have. They don't have people that are, you know, like really, really super hardcore players that are devs, and that makes sense, right? Because then they wouldn't have time to go to work. But the issue is that it feels like the game looks really good. Like, BFA is a really good game, theoretically. Like, theoretically, BFA would be amazing, right? The problem is that we're not living in a theoretical world. No, you guys don't think so. Really, you guys, okay. Here, let me explain something to you. Okay, all right, buddy, here's what you're gonna do. So, you're gonna spend 2 hours getting to level 10. And there are these two farms that are next to each other, but they're not really next to each other. It takes you about 5 minutes to go in between each farm. And you have to talk to one guy at a farm and then go back and talk to the other guy at the other farm. And then the other guy at the other farm wants you to go back to talk to the first guy at the first farm. And then whenever the first guy at the first farm is done having to talk to you, then you have to go kill a random mob inside a cave that you already did the quest for. Like, if you explain that, right, to somebody, and that's obviously, like, you know, the different farms in L1 Force, if you explain that to somebody and you ask them, is that a good game, they're going to say no. But if you explain how BFA works, right, in an abstract way, without somebody really understanding the way that, like, MMOs work or how player behavior is, they're going to think to themselves, wow, this is a great game. I would love to play this. The problem is that theoreticals and hypotheticals and these abstract views of the game don't actually make sense whenever you put them into practice. That's the problem. The game works great. The game makes perfect sense if robots are playing it. You know, if robots were playing BFA, they'd love it. Is Ian's a Mythic Raider, so at least there's that. Well, yeah, Ian's a Mythic Raider, but Ian's not the only developer. That's what I'm really trying to say. Same as capitalism, only good in theory. Yeah, same as every single other economic system. The problem with economic systems is that they're designed by people, and people are flawed. That's the thing. Ian ran Elitist Jerks for years. Yes, Ian is one person. Like, and like, again, the problem also is that a lot of the people that are playing, right? I wonder how many people in the dev team have over 30,000 achievement points. Because if you have over 30,000 achievement points, you must have been playing the game in a lot of different ways, right? You don't just get 30,000 achievement points by raiding. You don't just get 30,000 achievement points by doing PvP, etc. Right? And the point that I'm trying to make is that people that understand and play the entire game, I think are going to have a better understanding of how to make the game better than somebody who's a specialist in one version of the game or in one type of the game, right? So I think they should look at more, they should have like basically they should summon all of the neckbeards and fly them out to Irvine, California and be like, listen, bro, your slash played is 1,000 days. What the fuck are we doing wrong? Like what needs to change? What needs to be better? Yeah, a literal neckbeard summit. Like, not content creators, not, you know, people that, you know, I don't know, like make videos or stream on Twitch or anything like that. I'm sure there'd be some overlap. But for the most part, just having these straight up fucking neckbeards. Yeah, and they invite them and they say, listen, what should we do? And they take those people's advice. That's my opinion. Is you have to look at the people that are playing the game all the time because they have the best understanding of the game. They understand the game not through the lens of being a PvPer or a PvEer, but they understand the game as a whole. That's what I think they should do. Personal loot is 30% of the problem. Personal loot is a big problem. Target audience isn't those people. The target audience isn't those people, but if you bring in soccer moms and stuff like that, like making the target audience soccer moms obviously hasn't worked because they're not playing the game.
Of course, we in Cataclysm had a slightly pared down version of the old talent system that still fundamentally was like the old talent system, though of course Blizz were not that happy with it because they did, of course, the next expansion turn that into the Mists of Pandaria one.
Yeah.
And I suppose when we're talking about all of these expansion to expansion differences, this brings up another, I think, very, very interesting topic. So I'm not going to name any names, actually because I've forgotten who it was, but I saw somebody on Twitter talking about people being angry at current class design and really also liking vanilla a lot. And this really does bring me onto the
so there's about like 10,000 people that are saying that. I mean, everybody likes vanilla class design, probably not everybody, but a lot of people like vanilla class design much better than BFA.
Topic of the differences between the eras of World of Warcraft, where I've seen a lot of people sort of say that there's a lot of hypocrisy going on because people simultaneously are liking the idea of Classic and also liking the idea of Mists of Pandaria. Now, of course, if you compare Mists of Pandaria gameplay to Classic gameplay, they're pretty darn different. Mists of Pandaria was the fastest World of Warcraft has ever been. Just the number of buttons you would have. Now, okay, thinking about it.
I think Legion was really fast, too. I mean, whenever you think about it, there were a lot of things in Legion that you had to react to super, super quickly. But, I mean, like, maybe Mists of Pandaria, I don't know. I mean, Legion? Well, yeah, I mean, two different things. Legion was not faster. I don't know. I would say that there are a lot of things in Legion that you had to react to really fast because there are tons of things off the GCD. In Mists of Pandaria, that wasn't as common. Like, there were some things off the GCD, but not as many as there were in Legion.
Simple example, even just being a hunter with a mechanic like recklessness that would reset your, or not recklessness, readiness, that would reset your cooldowns. That meant that your opener was a decently complex thing that, of course, Blizzard ended up removing because of the complexity. You've got things like the snapshotting, right, on a Warlock, which is part of what made them so powerful. But in general,
they were ridiculous.
Just people had more tools. They had more things to play with. The pruning, right, the pruning that kicked off with Warlords of Draenor and continued into Legion and continued into Battle for Azeroth, and then, of course, also had the global cooldown stuff, that hadn't happened yet. So that meant that I would say,
just keep going.
As like the peak of modern-ish era WoW gameplay, Mists of Pandaria was totally up there.
I liked snapshotting. I didn't really like, actually I didn't like snapshotting, to be honest. But I think the problem, like, they shouldn't have gotten rid of snapshotting. They should have gotten rid of the abilities, like, what was that, like the Warlock ability, like Soul and Hail, or whatever the fuck, where they could, like absorb the dots off of a target and then apply the same dots with the same buffs to another target. Like, that's what really made them OP. And they, was it Soul Swap or Soul Harvest? I forgot, yeah, and Hail, I don't remember what it was. But that was, I think, too much. But before that, like, just basic snapshotting, I think is completely fine. Yeah, Soul Swap, I remember that. And Holy DKs too? Yeah, I mean, to that extent, I think that was probably a little bit too much. Because, like, whenever you're I think being very good at a class should make you be able to do, like, maybe 10% more damage, right? And, like, you know, having skill abilities like that, maybe 10%. But, like, Soul Swap is so powerful that on, like, protectors and shit, you were able to gain, like, 30 or 40% more DPS just with that one ability. It was way too much.
Now, Mists of Pandaria is when I think World of Warcraft was super engaging gameplay-wise.
Really good.
You could sit down and those classes were pretty deep. There was a lot you could do in different scenarios, and learning and mastering a class really did feel kind of fantastic. But it was still quite designed. It was still, you know, it still felt like modern WoW, I would say. Just that, you know, the current version just feels like a far worse version of that. But if you go way back to Classic, well, that's very different because you've got loads of buttons in Classic, but you've got loads of obtuse mechanics. And you've got those buttons not really being designed to work together in a rotation. And I think that's a really big thing. Now, a rotation is designed by a gameplay designer to be satisfying, to have a good rhythm. Look at a Fire Mage, look at a Frost Mage, right? It's all designed around rhythm, whereas back in the day, what was a rotation? I mean, I'm sure the designers tried to think of...
What was a rotation? You want to know what the Frost Mage rotation was? Frostbolt. I'm pretty sure that they're, like, what were the other abilities that they have, like, or other classes in Vanilla WoW that were literally one-button classes? I think it was, like, Shadow Bolt forever, Lightning Bolt, Warlock, I mean, and Warriors were easy, too. Like, as far as I know, it was, like, 3 abilities. You just held down Heroic Strike whenever you had a bunch of rage. You'd Whirlwind and Bloodthirst. Like, there's literally nothing else you could even fucking do. You just sit there. Rogue was 2 abilities. Yeah, Hunter was 3. Paladins, think about Paladins. They didn't have any. Like, they didn't have a rotate. They didn't do it. They didn't do it. They just attack. And, oh, so, no, they'd have to buff the raid. Yeah, so they'd buff the raid in between auto attacks. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, auto attack Andy. Hey, I mean, like, listen, I mean, that's the thing, but people, it's just...
What the rotation would be, but the rotation would far more feel like, oh, it's someone from the Elitist Jerks Forum. And they've kind of worked out the mathematical best way to use this bizarre, janky toolkit that your class has, and how that works with other people's, you know, janky toolkits. And then you come together and you form a team. And I think that's a lot of what made just a kind of a good bonding experience with the limited mechanics that the classes had. And honestly, they're pretty jank designs. I mean, let's be real. Vanilla was no way perfect in class design, right? But what's interesting, I suppose, is now a lot of those Elitist Jerks forum posters are actually the people designing the classes. And you can really see a sort of shift in design mentality. A lot of those older abilities were just abilities thrown into the game that, I mean, yeah, they had a place in a broader picture of a class or a spec, but...
See, look, Belluar is yawning just talking about class design and BFA. He's like, oh, God, I'm going to fall asleep here.
I suppose there were far fewer implicit assumptions in the design of those classes. Why do I say that? Well, the second you choose a fire mage, you're locked into a gameplay loop, and you have all of the abilities for that loop. Whereas in the old talent system and the old way the classes worked, you very much would just be picking and choosing things here and there. And for the designers, it was less about how do we just make a fire mage have this perfectly crafted loop of gameplay second to second, and it was more about what interesting sort of tools and decisions can we give the player, and then they work out the rotation for themselves. So I think that's a really key differentiator between the schools of design thought that have really led to the classes being the way that they are.
Well, what he's saying is the difference between sandbox design and what they do now, right? Theme park design. Like before, they just gave you a bunch of abilities and they said, hey, figure this shit out and see what's going to happen. And now they design it with a very, very clear intent in mind and how you're going to play the character. So I do think that's actually a pretty interesting distinction.
Now, I don't think we should go back to the classic version for World of Warcraft. One of the reasons why
I don't think so either.
Classic exists. If you want that, you can go and play Classic. I would far rather us go more towards the Mists of Pandaria way of things, because Modern WoW, for better or worse, it's Modern WoW, and I don't think that retrofitting Classic into Modern WoW would exactly be the best thing to do directly in terms of the class design. I mean, actually, if we're being real, there are some slowdown elements from Classic that Blizzard have tried to bring into Modern WoW, and they haven't really worked. So let's take a great example. Dehomogenization. Okay, so bring the player, not the class. See, this is great.
That's such a bad idea. That's such a bad idea with bringing the player, not the class, because there's always going to be a class that's better. Like, it never works that way. Like, it's so much smarter, in my opinion, to give each class something unique and cool that they can do, so you have to bring every class. Because if you don't do that, you have something like what happened in Tomb of Sargeras, where you have 8 rogues and 4 moonkins doing Mythic Kil'jaeden. That's what happens. And it's unfortunate, but there it is. Like, I mean, I don't really know what else to say about it besides that. It's kind of annoying. But yeah, there it is. What about having, what is this here? What about having lower rank spells for quick hits? So lower rank spells, I think only made sense. Like, the only way that I think lower rank spells made sense to me is whenever the lower rank would allow them to cast the ability faster. If it was just literally less mana cost, I thought that was kind of redundant, and I have no problem with them getting rid of that. I thought that was just kind of stupid. But the idea that, like, you can use a rank 1 Frostbolt just to apply the slow, and I like that a lot. That was great. But the rest of it, I wasn't a big fan. Saving mana? Well, yeah, like saving mana. Like, that's what I mean. Like, I don't like that type of gameplay, because I think that what happens is that it's kind of what I was saying about about bringing the player, not the class, is that people will always find the best rank to use. And once people find the best rank to use, they're just always going to use that rank. And that becomes the meta, and then, it just kind of evolves from there. And I think that what they should do instead is, maybe have just 2 of them, right? And I don't even think they should do this in Modern WoW anymore at all. Like, I don't think they should add spell ranks back into the game. It's something that was in Classic, and I don't think that it should return.
I was around whenever I was listening to
Wait, trade? What's the trade? Oh, I don't need this stuff. Oh, actually, I do. Maybe I do need a little bit of that. Wrong? Well, no. You guys have gotten way too far. Like, I don't know what's happened, but you guys have gotten way too dumb with this stuff about every single thing that was good, that happened in Classic was good. Like, the spell ranks and shit was dumb. Like, it added, a certain type of gameplay that was kind of interesting, but for the most part, Blizzard could do a better job in another way, right? It's your fault? No, it's you guys are just being way too nostalgic about this. Like, the Classic, the spell ranks were pointless. Like, Chaz Halo effect? I don't know, man. Casual goes 1200? Wrong, because once you started, in TBC, Priest used 3 different greater healings in a rotation. Yeah, I think that's dumb. Personally, I do. And I don't think they should continue doing that. Isn't the point of Classic? Well, I just think that, like, there are some things, right? All I'm saying is that there are some things that should stay in Classic and other things that shouldn't. I think spell ranks are one of the things that should stay in Classic. Spell ranks are because of leveling, not endgame. Yeah. It wasn't even intended to be part of endgame.
Blue Please episodes where Total Biscuit was ranting about bring the player, not the class. That was that was the good old days. But you know, that was a big change because way back in Classic or Vanilla and TBC, classes were not well rounded in their utility toolkits. But then over time, Blizzard kind of thought, you know what? No matter what class Jeff is bringing, Jeff should be able to come to the raid. So they just made sure that whatever Jeff's class was, it pretty much had all the utility you could possibly need.
And they didn't even do that because at high-level raids, it's like if you weren't like a, you know, something that could soak in Tomb of Sargeras, you weren't even invited.
And that's kind of how they designed the game. Bring
Fucking
the player,
Jeff,
not the class.
dude.
But then what do you see? And I mean, maybe the height of bring the player, not the class is Mists of Pandaria in a way where everyone is just an absolute superhero with so much power. Yep. Now, sure, there were still things like, as a hunter, I could, you know, use, I can't believe this, old aspect of the turtle. Oh, how embarrassing. You know, the cheese mechanics, a paladin could do that as well.
Yeah.
Not everyone could do that, but still, everyone was super powerful. But then over time, you will have noticed in WoD, in Legion, in BFA, what did Blizzard do? They tried to take away your utility. And the reason why they try to take your utility away is, and they said this at the time,
so they can make the other classes viable.
They liked how it forced team play. And they liked how it forced team play in the past. It's clear that that's not really something that the current players of the game really want. The current very mechanically focused players of the game. It's clearly not something that
well, it's not the mechanically focused players aren't the majority of the player base. Like, that's the problem, is that Blizzard... See, and this is like an issue that Blizzard has, right? And it's like, how do you know, whenever you're listening to the community, how do you know that the vocal amount of the player base represents the larger player base? Because there is like a confirmation bias where if people take the game really, really seriously, they're going to talk about it more. And if they talk about it more, then you're going to hear them more. But just because you're hearing them more doesn't mean that there's more of them. Does that make sense? So you create a feedback loop of just listening to the most invested players. And I think this is what happened. This is why Blizzard did stat templates in PvP, is they were listening to the bottom and the top 10% of players. The bottom, most dog shit fucking players that are so goddamn lazy to play the game, they don't want to fucking do anything. They just want to log in and play the game like League of Legends. And then the top 10% of players that don't want to have gear make any effect on PvP at all. And then the 80% in the middle of people that want to play an MMO where gear matters in PvP just get fucked. Because the top and the bottom 10% are more vocal and everybody thinks that they're the majority. And that's what happened with Blizzard. That's what they did. They fucked up. Like, I genuinely think that was such a big fucking mistake for them to do that. Majority of people still playing BFA are fine with how the game is because they're still playing it. No, that's not true at all. There's plenty of people that are playing the game that are probably unhappy with the state of the game. I would say that the majority of people that are playing BFA are more happy with it on average than the people that quit. Yeah, but that doesn't imply that they're necessarily happy with the game. As I said, if you criticize like Witcher 3, if I say anything bad about Witcher 3, I'll have 1,000 people freaking out on me, right? They're like, no, this is the best game ever. Don't ever say anything bad about my favorite game. But if you criticize WoW, the person that you're criticizing it to, a WoW player, will fucking agree with you. That's the difference. Yeah, I mean, like, no, I think that it's very popular for a lot of people that they just play the game because there's a lot of people that they only play WoW. And I'm one of these people, basically. I only really play WoW. I play a few other games every once in a while, but for the most part, I just play WoW. Like, if I stopped playing WoW, it's not like I would go over and play League of Legends or Fortnite. I would probably just sit on my computer and complain that WoW sucks. Right? I mean, that's basically it. And I would wait for it to be good again. Or I would just go do something in real life. That's basically it. Yeah, I mean, the forums, yeah, this is yeah, you just wait for it to be good again. There are 1 million neckbeards out there. I'm not even wrong, 1 million. 1 million neckbeards out there sitting there on the computer right now. Probably some of them in my chat right now. Yep. Sitting there, and they're just sitting there waiting. Because all of these people, right? All of these people are waiting for a game that's worthy for them to waste their life over it. They want to be in an environment where they can spend 12 hours in that online world and they can feel like they did something with their life. That's what it's all about. It's about the purpose and meaning, right? The fulfillment that you get out of it. The emotional investment that you get. And that's how you build an audience. Because you can't really build an audience of people off of, like the flash excitement. Titan Force, who gives a fuck? Who cares? Like, what matters is the feeling that you get whenever you log off and you lay in bed in that night, the night after you got invincible, the night after you got a really good item, the night before you get a really good item, the night before you get invincible, before you hit exalted on that faction, and you know that whenever you wake up in that morning, you are going to be able to loot that item and get that fucking shit, and after you wasted your time, and you are going to feel like a fucking winner. And that's what makes the difference. That's what makes a game that people will play and waste their life on. I judge the quality of a game off of how many TBS or CBS or Fox News reports are being made of people's children ruining their lives over it. You look how great Fortnite is. Kids ruin their lives over Fortnite all the time. WoW used to be the exact same. How many people are ruining their lives over WoW nowadays? Not enough. If a game is truly good, someone will ruin their life over it. I'm serious. Like and that's what I'm waiting. Like, we were waiting. We even watched this. Like, I talked about this before. We watched some of the videos of these kids that are playing Fortnite all day that want to be ninja, and the parents are upset. Like, the dad doesn't care because he's at work. The mom, who's like a stay-at-home mom, is like just upset and mad about it because the kid doesn't fucking do anything. He just wants to eat Doritos and play Fortnite all day. And that could be WoW. That kid's life could be ruined by WoW. And it's not. And that's a fucking tragedy.
Want. And I think that's totally fine. And I think that means that instead, World of Warcraft should be trying to not exactly be like Mists of Pandaria, but try to understand why Mists of Pandaria was so well loved by people who enjoyed the classes of WoW and the gameplay that came there. Really, I think it should be about providing that level of depth, allowing for mechanics like Warlock snapshotting or Ultra Time for the mages, which was the example that Ian brought up. I think that's really where we should be going. And if they're going to do that in the next expansion, I think that could really improve the game. So I think the slowdown, definitely a bit of an issue. The GCD changes, big issue. I think that's something...
Nobody wanted those. Nobody wanted the GCD changes. Nobody was like, hey, Blizzard, can you put all of the offensive cooldowns on a GCD? No, nobody ever asked for that. Do you know why they didn't ask for that? Because they didn't want it. Do you know how you know they didn't want it? It's because whenever Blizzard gave it to them, they said, we don't want it. Then Blizzard has slowly gone back and removed every change that they've made. Like, it's crazy, man. CD mentioned that at a PvP summit. Well, you know what? That's exactly my point. Sea-Doo is a rank 1, multi-rank 1 Gladiator BlizzCon champion. Yes, they should listen to those people, but at the same time, that's not the majority of the players, right? That's not. So if you have somebody that's playing the game exclusively in one way and knows a lot about it in that one way, and then you take that exclusive way of playing the game and you apply it to the entire player base, of course that's a mistake. Of course that's a fucking mistake. Blizzard should be listening to Sea-Doo more than any other individual player out there, basically, but that doesn't mean that what he would want is necessarily what should go into the game. And that's what I was saying before about the stat templates. It's the same issue.
They'll need to walk back in the next expansion. Let's be real. If Ian was to walk out and say, yeah, sorry about the GDC thing, bit embarrassing, we've undone it, people would be happy. Now,
they would be.
It's unfortunate that they're only happy because Blizzard subjected them to gameplay they didn't like for 2 years, but still, people would be happy. So if they were to do that in combination with more mop-like class design, you know, giving people a few new bells and whistles for their class, things that are actually for their class respec and are not dictated by an external progression system like the heart, like the artifact, I think people will be really happy. And then there is the topic, and this is something I'm so glad he brought up, of class over spec or spec over class, and the idea that, you know, you're not a hunter, you're a survival hunter. I think it would be great if they could just start having more class level things. I did bring up the idea of having class masteries as kind of like a talent point system that would exist on top of the current one, which would be stuff designed for your class. So that just the bread and butter of existing as a hunter would be different from the bread and butter of existing as a mage in a way that would really work for class identity. So I think something like that would be a really cool system in the future. But broadly speaking, I really like what he talked about. As I said in the start of the video, they have said these things before and then just not done them. But they did say this in a big official video that was right beside the main trailer for a patch.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
It seems pretty intentional. And right now it's 8.2, so they really are going to be kicking off the next expansion's full development process right around now. So, you know, they're kicking that off. They're saying this. That all does seem like a pretty good thing. But that is not where we're going to stop today, because we do have one more topic. And that topic is Essence Catch-Up. So basically, you get the new essences in the next patch, right?
Okay.
And I think one thing that a lot of players, myself included, have been pretty bummed out about in the past with WoW is just the feeling that everything's pointless. Now, way back in Wrath of the Lich King, you know, I got my item level 200, I got my nice sword from King Yearman, and, you know, that was a good sword. Trial is bringing me up to like 232, and you were maybe, what, 264?
It actually was a good sword, to be fair. It was a very good sword. And I see that obviously people are opening trade with me, guys. You don't need to tell me that.
For 25 ICC, the item level difference was not that big, and that still meant that just, you know, your gear always felt pretty meaningful.
Yeah.
Whereas right now, we essentially, let's be real, we have an expansion-sized gear reset every 4 months. And that does make me feel like I can't progress my character right now before 8.2 comes out. And being real with you, maybe 3 months into 8.2, I'm going to feel like there's no point progressing my characters because 8.3 is just going to undo it all anyway.
That's right. And this is how Blizzard can fix that. This is how Blizzard can fix the problem, okay? It's very, very simple. All they need to do is they just take it to where whenever you have a new patch come out, all of the gear is just above that previous patch. So that way, if you come into the game late, you have that much content to progress through. Instead of you just start at the exact same place everybody else does. Because it's like they're re-releasing the beginning of the expansion every single patch by doing that. 100% why I started playing this shit. Yeah, I know that's exactly the same with everybody else too. Like, I mean, I'm sorry to say, but it's very, very frustrating that they just keep fucking doing this. Horizontal progression will kill the game. You're right. That's all they need to do.
So that's something that I think there's been a lot of criticism about. Well, in regards to the essence catch, or the essences that you're going to be earning in this patch, Ian said that they're not going to be superseded. There's not going to be a catch-up system for them. The essences are the essences. Your work now is not going to be trivialized in the future. They may add new essences, but they're not going to add a bunch of new essences and then just, you know, give you a vendor where you can purchase the current ones. There's not going to be a catch-up system. That's really good to hear, because that means that if I start a new character 3 months into this next patch, maybe I don't feel like I'm really going to be gaining if I progress my character's gear all that much, because I know it'll be reset, but I at least know all these essences. If I work in them now, they will stand to my character for the duration of this expansion. That is where the game needs to be. And even though it is not game-wide and is just within the bounds of the Essence system, it's good to hear that they understand that. So, where does this video leave us? Honestly, it leaves us nowhere concrete, because these are just words. We need to see those words turn into action. What I will say is this. I like the sounds he's making. I like the things he's talking about. The direction, right?
Fucking
they're moving in that direction more. that would be a good thing. I think the comparisons between MoP and Classic and today are super interesting, and I think we can learn the right lessons from all of those things and move forward in a way that will genuinely make WoW a hell of a lot better. Fundamentally, it's what Ian said. The class, you know, your class, your character, it's the lens through which you view the game, you play the game. If your class just kind of sucks and you don't feel like there's that much depth, it's going to reduce the enjoyment of every other system in the game. The fact that they know that, the fact they're making big public noises about that, very good thing indeed. So, I want to end this video by asking you, what would you like to see for your class, for your spec? Let's say you're a mage. I want to know what things do you want for your favorite spec, but I also want to know what things would you like for your entire class, that your whole class gets, that would bolster that class identity. That's what I want to hear down in the comments. So, bit of a long video, super interesting topic. I'd love to hear what you think. Let me know down below. Thank you very much for watching this video.
That is a lot.
And with that, I shall see you.